Hello, I'm Gary Quinn, and welcome to another episode of Ready, Set, Live. My guest today is Medical Director and co-founder of Cryo Healthcare, Inc., Dr. Jonas Kuehne, and a graduate of UCLA School of Medicine. Jonas and his wife, Emilia, are the founders of Cryo Health, Inc. Cryo Health Therapy is the first company to bring whole cryotherapy to the United States. They developed and trademarked the cryofacial TM treatment and set standards in the treatment efficacy and safety. In 2011, Cryo Healthcare added an engineering department to the company and created the coldest walk-in cryotherapy chamber. Don't go away. I'll be right back with Dr. Jonas. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Jonas. Tell me about cryotherapy. I know it's been around for a while, but your company seems to really specialize in this.
Right.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, so this started sort of in 1978. There was a Japanese rheumatologist that wanted to find a treatment for his patients that had severe rheumatoid arthritis. So we're talking an inflammatory disorder, right? An autoimmune inflammatory disorder. And he came up with this extreme cold temperature treatment that once you reach a cryogenic threshold, he discovered, the body, especially the layers of the skin that get flash frozen from this cold temperature, release anti-inflammatory proteins. And it works really very efficiently to treat severe illnesses like, autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis. And that's how it started. Then we became interested I was actually working in geriatrics for a while and wanted to get out of that. Every person in America, unfortunately, I love the patients, but the overwhelming majority of these patients are on a massive amount of medications, and especially for pain modulation and other things. So I was looking really for non-pharmacologic applications, and I thought initially this would be my patient base. Turns out that's only a small part now, right? And then while Emilia, my girlfriend at the time, was doing an internship in Germany, she did a sample in a cryotherapy place, one of the newest ones in Berlin they had. And I came along, I was visiting Germany at the time, I was living in the US. And so it's the first time I saw it. And then I was hooked. I thought it was amazing, did more research, and brought the first machine over here.
Now, how long, and I've been at your center and I've tested it, and how long is the results that you have to go 6 months, or what is the best results?
It varies what you're doing it for. So if you have an acute injury, even a few treatments are fine. We have, interestingly, a large majority of people coming in just because they feel so much more, they feel their metabolism pick up so much that they're more functional. And these are people that are not chronically ill. But if you are chronically ill, let's say you have, in a severe case, rheumatoid arthritis, and we have many patients with that, then regular treatments, we'd say about 3-4 times a week. And I would say after the first 1 to 2 weeks even, you start feeling a lot better.
Yeah. And the cold actually brings the inflammation down, right?
Yes, and it's not like, and as people always bring this up, they confuse cold with other modalities, like an ice bath. An ice bath is a very different modality. I like ice baths or cold plunges. I've done them. They don't work at this level. So we're talking here about an extremely potent anti-inflammatory treatment. I'll give you an example. We have a patient with severe rheumatoid arthritis, and she has pretty much over her life failed all available treatments. There's immunosuppressive therapy like Humira, you might have heard about, Scalara, all these things. And then there's corticosteroids. So nothing really worked anymore. She was worsening and came to cryo. This was years ago already, and has done regular treatments 3-4 times a week. She is now off all medications in a remission state, so this doesn't go away, but she's in remission for many years now with normal blood levels. And that doesn't happen in an ice bath. You have to go to a cryogenic temperature, in my opinion, at least negative 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And we go a bit colder than that.
And also, what I love about your center or your centers, you have so many different variations of holistic modalities. And I've done the infrared light therapy. Tell me more. I know you have several YouTubes about it, but for someone who's a novice and doesn't know, they may think it's a tanning bed.
Looks like it.
Exactly.
So this is an interesting treatment. I also came across this I read a few studies on it, and it was pretty fascinating. When you look at red light, visible light, the spectrum, as you go to the longer wavelength end of what we can see as light, that's red, right? From red, you go to near infrared. You can't see that anymore. So from anywhere from 620 to 680 or 700 nanometers, that's red, you can see. After about 700 or 720 nanometers, near infrared, you can't see. But these light frequencies actually, and you think of wavelengths here, right, can penetrate into the body. Other light doesn't do that really. But red light and near infrared goes into your skin, which is the red light you can see that goes into the layers of the skin and the dermis and subdermis, right? And then near infrared can go 1.5 to 2 inches deep in your tissue and actually penetrates bone. And it's fantastic. Both these light waves, they kind of work on mitochondria in our cells. We think of them as the powerhouses. But what they do essentially, one of the main effects is they allow the mitochondria to produce more melatonin. The same thing we think of for sleep, but here, if it's produced in the mitochondria, it helps with mitochondrial health and function. And it can take cells that are in oxidative stress about to die and revive them this way. And it's tested right now and actually used already even in brain diseases like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's dementia, because again, it goes through the skull to the brain and allows these neurons in the brain to become more functional again and reverse some of the symptoms and some of the etiology we have with Alzheimer's even.
So would you say that it's sort of a planting of the seeds of what you have, your cells that are dying, it helps to regenerate them or keep the longevity of them by the light infrared?
Yeah, it makes them healthier again. So the thing is, one thing that I came across more and more when I read these studies, so I'll do videos about it, mitochondrial health, right, is that something that we know more and more is really important because it seems that that's at the root of all diseases. And you think of cancer, one of the diseases that's very scary, obviously, that I was thinking about. We always thought about, well, this is manifesting because we have problems with the genetic material. The DNA in the nucleus has some problems, right? You have mutations in there, and that is the manifestation of a cell that has an uncontrolled division cycle. But it turns out actually that it starts in the mitochondria because they've done tests with these cells where they had a cancer cell and they put in a healthy nucleus with healthy DNA and it continued to be a cancer cell and vice versa. They had a healthy cell, they put a cancer nucleus in there with cancer DNA and that cell stayed healthy. So the mitochondria seem to be the more predominant part of the health of the cell even there. And when we can do something to improve our mitochondrial health, and LED red light and near infrared is one of those modalities. Others are glutathione, or the replenishment of glutathione. These are all important things there. We can actually, one, prevent, which is really what I'm interested in, but also we can also treat, right?
And also the the glutathione and the B12 and the vitamin D. I mean, what's so great is people don't know that you can maybe take injections of those to help benefit or boost.
Right.
What is the benefit of because it's mind, body, spirit.
Yeah.
So you have to find the balance. And how do you know if your energies are off? That's the thing. How do people say, how do I go to a cryotherapy and what do I need it really?
I think the interesting thing here is even if you do, let's say you do a cryotherapy session or you do an LED bed session, if when you're treating something, one session might not be sufficient, but you can tell after the first time you were there how you feel. And they use usually a pretty big impact. If you are sick or if you have a deficiency, then doing these modalities will make you feel a lot better. And the more regularly you do it, the more lasting it is. Again, for short-term injuries, you may not need a lot of sessions. But one thing is if you're chronically sick or so, then we offer, again, these packages for the whole month. And it becomes actually very reasonable. I think our cryo comes down to $12 a treatment if you have a monthly unlimited. That's actually very, very reasonable. But like you said, so having deficiencies as we age is more prevalent, especially with vitamins. Most of, when you think about vitamins, need to be absorbed when you take them orally in your digestive tract. And as we get older, that absorption is massively decreasing, especially for things like vitamin B12. And then injecting it, you bypass that, right? You give an intramuscular shot, goes from there into the bloodstream. You're bypassing the digestive tract, so you have full absorption. And you can see then, if you improve, I always recommend if you do a modality at our place, do one at a time. Because if there is a change and you do a bunch of things while you're there, we don't know what actually worked for you. So I think it's good to be, conservative at first and say, well, let's try this out. If you have a blood test, we can look at that. We can also do testing in our facility. We do blood tests as well. So I do some primary care there as well. And we can see if you're low on certain vitamins, for example.
Also, I do the Beamer.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the Beamer, because many people I've tried to explain what it is, and they go, is that like a magnet thing? What is it all about? Explain to the audience what that is.
And then that was my first reaction when I heard about it. So any modality, by the way, that we're using is something that I have to wanting and that I'm using myself, because otherwise I would be a bit of a hypocrite to have it. This one, I wasn't convinced at first. And then I looked at the studies. They were great, and tried it out and had some amazing effects from this. So this is a PEMF device, pulsating electromagnetic field. So essentially, it's a magnetic field that you're on that has a certain wavelength, signature wavelength that they designed. It is not a very strong field, but you can feel it while you're on there. And the only thing it really does, it dilates capillary beds. And what it means is the very small blood vessels in your tissue, it allows the blood to go further. It allows oxygen to go further than it usually goes, right? Because it widens those. And when you think of red blood cells, they have a certain size. They transport oxygen. They pick up CO2. Then you have waste products. And then you have your immune system, your white blood cells that need to get in there as well. And if these cells are chronically constricted, you can't get in there. So what the Beamer does, it opens up these beds and allows better perfusion. And with that come all the effects that it has. It sounds a bit like snake oil because it has so many benefits. But when you think about it, you're oxygenating tissue, you are picking up more CO2, you're allowing your immune system to go to places where it usually cannot go. And that's how it has such a tremendous effect on the body. So I think it's a fantastic treatment. Think of hyperbaric oxygen chambers. We don't offer that. That is like an hour and a half, usually in a slightly higher pressure, higher oxygen environment. The idea there is high pressure, you're dissolving oxygen in the liquid, in the plasma of your blood, right? And because plasma, even if you have constricted capillary beds, can go there. It's just a liquid. You have oxygen carrying that way. The Beamer does it by dilating them, allowing the red blood cells carrying oxygen to go to those places. That's the difference, right?
And I noticed that when I'm consistent with the Beamer, I can feel the change slowly. You can feel it, especially traveling a lot. But I also, what I love about your work is that you are consistent in about talking about food and I know you have so many YouTubes and people should watch them about the salt.
Yeah.
And about how important the salt is, that the table salt is garbage.
That's right, one of them. So I think food is crucial. And we think of, so my interest really is preventive medicine. And one of the best ways to start is, the things we put into our body, right? And unfortunately, our diet, again, is terrible. We have processed foods, we have contaminants, we have toxins that we consume on a regular basis. And our government agencies are not very good at really cutting out things that are harmful for us, because there seem to be too much monetary interest back and forth. There seem to be, again, I would like to see a bit more of a clear guideline for people. But having changes in your nutrition is one of the best things you can do for improving your health long term, right? And going to simple ingredients, whole ingredients, things that are not sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, like simple stuff, right? Cutting out things that are full of heavy metals or plastic components. I talk a lot about plastic and water and other things. And there's things that are not that difficult to do, and they shouldn't be too expensive to do. I think it's more an understanding of, well, what is out there that does harm, because a lot of times I didn't know either. In medical school, I had about a handful of nutrition lectures, and we didn't talk about a lot of environmental toxins. You talk about what you do with a sick patient coming in, right? Now my interest is more, well, how do you prevent someone from getting sick? Because I think that's the better way to approach it. Also the less lucrative way in the medical business, but I think it's the more important way.
Was there a catalyst that you said, I want to change, or you saw that there was such a need, or what was your moment where you said, I want to do longevity?
So really it is working in the geriatric, in geriatrics with elderly people and seeing, again, everybody has about 15 to 20 medications when they're 80 or 85. Most of them, I would argue, they will not need. And it is interesting how the whole system is geared towards getting us hooked on chronic medication, and we are very reluctant to decrease them. And that was kind of my job back then, which I liked, going in saying, hey, does this person need this? But, again, going there, is that really the solution? Do we need to treat with so many medications, or can we do changes that are non-pharmacologic in nature? And of course, there can be medications to support. The interesting thing here that we see in Western medicine is one or the other, right? You can have either you go full pharmacologic and Western medicine, which I studied. I went to UCLA for medical school, or you go in holistic, non-medication, food-based, right? I think they should work hand in hand. I think we should have both available. There are medications that are fantastic and are needed, but many medications are overprescribed. And the issue we have is that our medical system is a business. And when medicine becomes a business, especially in the pharma industry, I can't blame the pharma industry. They try to make money, and that's what they're set out to do, right? But it sometimes does not work in the interest of the patient.
Well, it also, you start to see how people really now have to be their own health advocates, because I believe in all the holistic medicines, Chinese medicine, I've done for many years, acupuncture, cupping, and I recently had to have a test done on my stomach, and I spoke to the doctor, big scientific doctor, and she's Chinese, and I said, what about these modalities? And you're Chinese, don't you do these teas? And I said, I go and I drink these teas, and I get the cupping, and I do she says, oh, no, prescriptions. And I'm like, no.
She just said both. I mean, that's the thing. Look at green tea. I did a video about it. Green tea has an active ingredient called EGCG, which is amazing. It has a lot of anti-cancer properties, right? Studies in Japan have shown that, people that drank about 10 of these cups of tea, the smaller cups than ours, of green tea, had a lower incidence of cancer when you compare it in the population. So we know these things do work. We know they're active ingredients, and we know these are things that do not have a lot of side effects. But there's reluctance, and the reluctance is because as physicians, we are, whether we like it or not, we're influenced by the pharma industry, right? And the pharma industry, of course, it's in their interest to say, well, don't use anything that's not a prescription. We have the better studies and the better research and publications, and that's absolutely true, they do. But that's because there's a lot of money involved, right? There's patents. And when you think about, do you know, is there a patent on green tea? Of course not, because again, these are natural ingredients. And then in whose interest is it to do a multi-million-dollar double-blind placebo-controlled study on a particular aspect of these active ingredients? That is the issue, that why we don't a lot of times have good studies on either cheap medications or repurposed medications, and there's some very good ones as well, or on natural ingredients of foods, right? But we do have a lot of studies for a lot of money on new patentable pharmaceuticals, right? And I'm not saying all of them are bad. Some of them are good. But if you think about it, at some point you're running out of things to sell, and you have to fish a bit for new things. And new makes more money. That's true, but it's not always better.
Also, do you find that with many patients that it's connected to the mental part, as far as the, I teach, positive affirmations and positive thinking, but if a person starts to concentrate on those aspects, they start in time feeling better and looking more positive. Do you find when people take the cryotherapy and maybe they've been not so positive, but as they start to change their mental state of mind, that it helps to heal them quicker?
I think very much so. Cryo is very interesting there because it has actually, so when you go to studies published in Europe, there it is actually considered a medical modality, so you can use it in a medical setting. And one indication is major depressive disorder, right? So people that have depression, we know people with depression are more prone to disease. And that is, as you mentioned, actually, it is a state of mind. And positive thinking versus negative thinking has been studied and been shown that if you are in a very negative mindset, you're thinking very negatively about your health all the time, you have a worse health outcome. And that is, you can find studies that really document that. And that is another pet peeve of mine with our field in medicine, because we usually give the worst possible diagnosis to someone, and that doesn't do anybody any favors, We're always saying, like, well, in my experience, this will happen to you, And a lot of times, we don't really know because some people do better, some people do worse, But you're right. If in a negative mind, a negative thinking can greatly affect your health. And modalities like, cryo, beamer, when you come out of there, or the red light even, you can feel endorphins kicking in at a very high amount. You feel better. Depressive symptoms get better, get modulated at least, and sometimes go away even, right? And that impacts your health as well. So one is the physical changes and the changes on a cellular level and the release of anti-inflammatory proteins. The other one is the mental state. And I think they do work hand in hand.
And I also love that you were speaking about how the red light can help anxiety and depression. Is that because the endorphins are kicked in, or is it all the procedures help to stabilize the mind?
So with the light therapy, it's really its direct effect on the brain, because again, remember, the wavelengths can penetrate tissue. Red light only really to the dermis, subdermis, capillary beds and all these things. But then near infrared just go through the skull, goes through bone into the brain. And by really improving the health of your neurons in your brain, we feel that a lot of times anxiety improves, because anxiety or all these things, they do have sometimes also when you want, like a physical underlying, in the individual neurons in our brain. When we can improve brain health, a lot of times anxiety improves as well.
What would your best tip be for someone who wants to get healthy, and meaning mind, body, and soul? What would you suggest?
I would really investigate the things that chronically make you sick and avoid those first. I think that's the first step. And when you start with water, drinking out of plastic bottles.
Plastic is bad.
It's just really bad. We just now found, I did a video on it. There's nanoplastics, which they can identify now. 200,000 plastic particles, mostly nanoplastics, in a liter of water. That actually is so small, it penetrates from the gut lining into a bloodstream, even goes to a brain. So these things you got to cut out. So
and you can taste the difference.
You can taste the difference, but and then people always ask, well, what's a good alternative? So start with your consumption of water, because that's one of the most important nutrients we take in every day. Go with the reverse osmosis filter. In the morning, let it run for about 1 glass to flush the system, and then use that, right? Don't use plastic bottles. You drink out of stainless steel. Don't heat anything in plastic, so avoid all plastic as best you can. Have glass containers, stainless steel containers, ceramic cups. Do not drink hot beverages at Starbucks. These cups, they're paper, they're lined with plastic, otherwise they would leak out, right? And when you put a hot liquid in there, guess what happens? That dissolves more of the crap that's in there. We're talking phthalates and bisphenols. If they tell you it's BPA-free, bisphenol A-free, then there's bisphenol S or F in there. So again, I would avoid all that. So that's number one. Then in nutrition-wise, go to simple ingredients. Don't buy anything in a package ideally. So go with single ingredients. We're talking about eggs, milk, we're talking about fruit and vegetables, and even meat is fine. But when it's all packaged up and processed, and you have a lot of processed foods in there, these are things that have stuff in there we don't want, like seed oils. It's going to have microplastics in there as well. It's going to have a bunch of crap in there. So go with that. Go with simple nutrition. Think how people ate, let's say, 150 years ago. What did they buy in the grocery store, wherever they went? And they were a bit healthier back then, because they didn't have all these chemicals we have today. They had less incidence of disease. They died from infection usually, or tuberculosis, which, again, I'm glad we have antibiotics and other things today, right? But if you think, if it was okay 150 years ago, if that's what people ate, you're fine. If it's something that's very new, I would just not have it, like artificial sweeteners and food colorings, bad.
Yep. Well, thank you for the health chat with Doctor in the house. And if any of you would like to look him up further, you can go to his Instagram at jonas.kuehne.md, and you can check out his cryotherapy chambers at his three different locations in Los Angeles, if you happen to be in Los Angeles. But thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to see you and your wife, and you'll see me at your center more and more.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure being here.
It was great. So thank you so much for joining me today on this special episode of Ready, Set, Live. Until next time, be well.